Imagine inspecting a forest when a grizzly bear attacks or jogging through your neighborhood, only to come face to face with a black bear. What would you do? These stories reveal how close encounters with wild bears can turn deadly instantly. Each tale shows the thin line between adventure and danger, from a wilderness therapy session interrupted by a brown bear to an eco-tourist fighting for survival in the jungle. So join us as we dive into 6 gripping stories of survival, courage, and unexpected bear encounters. In the quiet stillness of October 20th, 2024, Tom Harris, a seasoned forestry worker, set off into the sprawling expanse of a forest located in Montana. The leaves had turned brilliant shades of gold, orange, and red, carpeting the forest floor in a stunning autumn display. The forest felt like a second home for Tom, who had spent years working amidst these towering trees and quiet streams. He was there for a routine inspection, a task he was accustomed to. The forest was being assessed for a new logging operation, and his role was to check the designated area, noting any tree damage and ensuring the space was suitable for safe work. Tom was a dedicated professional known for his commitment to sustainable forestry. He believed in responsible management that protected both the forest and its wildlife. He knew every corner of this forest well, understanding the importance of every stream, tree, and rock. The thought of another logging project brought mixed feelings, as he knew that such operations could disrupt the delicate ecosystems in these woods. However, Tom knew his job well and felt that careful planning and mindful practices could mitigate most of the damage. After hiking for miles, Tom reached a secluded area near a crystal-clear stream, which seemed undisturbed and serene. He took a moment to appreciate the beauty around him. The air was crisp, filled with the earthy aroma of decaying leaves and fresh pine. As he observed the trees, noting their health and density, he spotted one that had suffered damage. The bark was likely stripped by animals, and the roots appeared weakened. Kneeling down, he scrutinized it, unaware that he had wandered into the territory of a displaced grizzly bear. Unbeknownst to Tom, the recent plans for logging and encroachment in the area had impacted a grizzly, forcing her to seek refuge in this forest. To her, the arrival of new humans signaled a potential threat to her home and survival. She had likely sensed Tom's presence well before he even noticed her. Bears are known for their heightened senses. In this case, her protective instincts were triggered. As Tom focused on the tree, taking notes and measurements, he suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of being watched, the hairs on the back of his neck rising. He looked up, scanning his surroundings. At first, he saw nothing, only the dense shadows cast by the trees and the sunlight filtering through the leaves. Then, out of his eye, he spotted movement near the stream's edge. His heart raced as he realized a massive grizzly bear stood just a few yards away, her robust frame unmistakable in the dappled light. The bear was close enough that he could see her muscles rippling beneath her thick fur, her gaze fixed intently on him. Tom knew the protocol. Moving slowly, he avoided direct eye contact, backing away cautiously, hoping to communicate that he posed no threat. But the bear, perhaps unsettled by recent disturbances in her habitat, seemed to interpret his presence differently. Her body tensed, and with little warning, she charged forward, covering the ground between them with terrifying speed. Tom's mind raced as he tried to remember his training. He had encountered bears before, but never this close or agitated. He dropped his notepad, raising his arms slightly to appear more prominent, but it was too late. The bear closed the gap, swiping at him with a massive paw, the force of which knocked him off his feet and sent him sprawling backward onto the forest floor. Pain shot through Tom's body as he scrambled to protect himself, instinctively curling into a defensive position. The bear roared, her breath hot against his skin, and struck again, claws tearing into his jacket. Tom's heart pounded, the adrenaline surging through him as he fought to stay conscious and focused. Tom's vision blurred as he struggled against the intense pain, feeling the weight of the bear as it pressed down on him. He fought the urge to move, knowing that sudden actions might provoke the grizzly further. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but he remained still, lying curled in the dirt, hoping the bear would lose interest. Seconds felt like hours as he braced himself, trying to steady his breath amidst his heart pounding. Gradually, the bear slowed its attack, lifting its head and sniffing the air around him. Tom stayed as motionless as possible, each shallow breath sending waves of pain through his chest. The bear seemed to sense something else in the forest, perhaps catching a scent or sound that distracted it. With a final snort, the bear turned and slowly lumbered away, leaving Tom battered and alone. He waited, counting each passing second until he was sure the bear had gone far enough. Summoning the last bit of his strength, Tom forced himself to sit up, wincing with each movement. His body ached with deep scratches and bruises, his jacket and shirt torn, exposing bleeding wounds underneath. He looked around, half dazed, trying to focus and gather his bearings. The forest felt eerily silent, as if the birds and other creatures had paused, unsettled by the grizzly's aggression. Tom knew he was in a critical condition and had to get help soon. He remembered the radio clipped to his belt, his lifeline back to his team at the leading site. His hands trembled as he reached for it, his fingers stiff and aching, but he pressed the button and called for assistance. He relayed his location and situation in a strained voice, hoping someone could pick up his weakened signal. He leaned back against a tree, fighting off the growing dizziness. With his radio message sent, he could only wait and try to stay awake. The cold crept over him as his body reacted to the shock, his breath visible in the crisp autumn air. He thought about the bear, realizing it had attacked out of fear, not malice. He understood that the forest was the bear's home long before it was his workplace. The encounter had left him scarred, but also with a profound respect for the wild, a reminder of the powerful balance between humans and nature. An hour passed before he heard voices and the crunch of footsteps approaching. His team arrived, rushing to his side, their faces pale with concern. They carefully lifted him, securing him in a stretcher and wrapping him in blankets to keep him warm. As they moved through the forest, Tom could feel the weight of what had happened. The reality of how close he had come to the end struck him deeply, filling him with gratitude for his survival. Back at the hospital, his wounds were treated, and he was given time to recover. News of the incident spread quickly, sparking discussions about the forest's fragile ecosystem and wildlife's challenges with ongoing human intrusion. Tom's story became a turning point, inspiring new guidelines for forest management to better respect and protect the habitats of wild animals. He knew he would carry the marks of that day forever, but with them came a strengthened commitment to the forest he loved and the creatures that called it home. On the chilly night of October 12, 2024, Elena Martinez, a seasoned park ranger in Oregon's Cascade Range, prepared for her usual late-night patrol. With over a decade of experience, Elena had witnessed various wildlife behaviors and knew the dense forests of the Cascades like the back of her hand. Her role included ensuring the safety of park visitors and the animals inhabiting these vast woods. Recently, there has been an uptick in human encroachment, and careless campers left behind litter and food, which lured wildlife closer to the trails. Aware of this problem, Elena carried a kit with deterrents like bear spray and noisemakers, hoping they would protect herself and the animals she encountered. The cold autumn wind rustled the dry leaves around her as she patrolled the trails. The sky was clear, stars scattered across the dark expanse above. Her flashlight illuminated the narrow path ahead, casting shadows that seemed to move with the swaying trees. It was an ideal night for wildlife activity, and Elena was prepared for any encounters, though she hoped they would remain peaceful. Suddenly, a faint sound broke through the quiet, a rustling from the dense underbrush along the trail. She slowed her steps, focusing on the noise. Experience told her this could be anything from a deer to a small group of raccoons, but her gut hinted at something more significant. As Elena carefully moved closer, she caught sight of a mother black bear and her two cubs. The cubs were tiny, likely born earlier in the year, and they followed their mother closely, pawing through the leaves in search of food. Elena's heart raced slightly. She understood the risks involved when a mother bear felt her cubs were in danger, especially when food was scarce or disrupted by human activity. She remained still, hoping the bears wouldn't notice her presence. However, the mother bear soon lifted her head, catching Elena's scent or sensing her quiet approach. The bear's posture stiffened as she stared directly at Elena, her protective instincts fully triggered. Elena realized she had little time to react. Any sudden movement could provoke the bear further. She reached slowly for her bear spray, keeping her movements measured to avoid startling the animal. The bear, however, interpreted her presence as a threat, her low growl vibrating through the cold air, a signal that she was ready to defend her cubs at any cost. Within seconds, the bear launched into a charge, quickly closing the distance between them. Elena raised her spray, aiming it at the bear while making loud, firm noises to deter the attack. The spray created a temporary barrier, causing the bear to halt briefly, shaking her head in discomfort. But the encounter wasn't over. As the bear shook its head, momentarily disoriented by the spray, Elena took a few steps backward, never letting her eyes leave the bear. She knew that turning her back would be dangerous, but she also understood that staying too close might provoke the animal further. Confused and sensing their mother's agitation, the cubs started making soft sounds, adding to the tense atmosphere. The mother bear glanced at her cubs, torn between the need to protect them and the threat she perceived in Elena's presence. Elena maintained a steady posture, her heart racing, but her mind focused on her training. She knew another aggressive move might prompt the bear to charge again, so she backed away slowly, inching toward the tree line. Despite the initial impact of the bear spray, the mother bear took a few heavy steps toward Elena, as if making sure she would keep her distance from the cubs. Elena's instincts told her to remain calm, holding her breath with each step back, her eyes still on the massive bear that seemed ready to defend its territory at any moment. After a few tense moments, the bear seemed to calm slightly, assessing the situation as Elena maintained her distance. The mother bear snorted a sign of frustration or warning before turning her attention to her cubs, who had now moved closer to her. Relieved, Elena kept her slow retreat, hoping the bear would soon be comfortable enough to let her leave. The forest was silent except for the bear's heavy breaths and the rustling leaves as Elena carefully backed away along the trail. Once she felt she was far enough, Elena finally turned and walked quicker, creating as much distance as possible between herself and the bear family. Her body ached from tension, and she could feel the sting from a few scratches on her hands from brushing against the sharp underbrush during the encounter. Her quick thinking helped her avoid a much worse outcome despite the initial fear. However, she couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that this incident directly resulted from the increasing human impact on the wildlife habitat she had worked so hard to protect. When she returned to the ranger station later that night, Elena reported the encounter, emphasizing the need for stricter regulations to prevent visitors from leaving garbage and food remnants in areas where bears and other wildlife roamed. Her team took note, understanding that incidents like these were becoming more common as animals faced disruption to their natural habitats. The next day, the park issued new guidelines on food disposal and reinforced safety protocols for rangers and visitors alike. The experience remained fresh for Elena, a reminder of the delicate balance between humans and nature. Though she had survived only minor injuries, the encounter left her more determined than ever to advocate for wildlife safety and conservation. The memory of that mother bear and her cubs served as a lasting reminder of the unpredictable yet awe-inspiring world she had dedicated her life to understanding and protecting. On October 22, 2024, deep in the remote forests of British Columbia, a wilderness therapy program aimed at troubled youth unfolded against the peaceful backdrop of towering pines and the gentle sounds of a flowing river. This program, run by counselor Mark Stevens, was designed to help young participants find healing and strength in nature, away from the distractions of daily life. Mark, a seasoned counselor and outdoor enthusiast, believed sincerely in the power of nature to bring peace and clarity. His small group of participants, each carrying their own set of struggles, had come together to learn, grow, and build trust within the safe confines of the wilderness. The group had spent the last few days camping in designated areas, learning survival skills, and engaging in team-building exercises designed to foster unity and self-confidence. Each participant had begun settling into the experience, finding solace in the quiet woods surrounding them. Mark guided them through each activity, emphasizing respect for the natural environment and the importance of mindfulness while immersed in nature. Mark gathered the group near a secluded riverbank as the sun rose higher that day for another bonding activity. The sound of water over smooth rocks was soothing, and the group sat on the forest floor, forming a rough circle around Mark as he explained the importance of relying on one another. They were focused on the lesson, unaware that the area's serenity was about to shift. Unbeknownst to them, a large brown bear had caught the scent of food from previous groups, The bear had been roaming nearby, drawn to the human scent and intrigued by the unusual smells. At first, the bear remained hidden within the thick trees, sniffing the air as it moved closer to the riverbank. Absorbed in his guidance, Mark remained oblivious to the quiet rustling in the underbrush behind them. However, a few participants shifted uncomfortably as they sensed something was amiss. Just as Mark finished speaking, he noticed the unease on their faces and followed their gazes toward the line of trees. To his alarm, he saw the bear's large, dark form advancing slowly toward the group, its curious eyes fixed on them, growing bolder as it moved. Mark's heart pounded as he assessed the situation. Years of experience had taught him that panicking would only make things worse. He took a deep breath, signaling for everyone to remain calm. Though visibly frightened, the group looked to Mark for guidance, trusting his expertise. He quietly motioned for them to stay seated, trying to remember the safety protocols he had reviewed countless times. Mark's calm response held the group's attention as they sat frozen, watching the bear inch closer. With years of training and experience, Mark knew the key was avoiding sudden movements. He whispered instructions, urging the participants to stay still and avoid eye contact with the bear. His calm demeanor began to sink in, helping the group focus on his instructions rather than the fear gripping their minds. The bear, still curious, stopped a few yards away, sniffing the air and assessing the group. Mark slowly reached into his backpack, pulling out a small canister of bear spray. He held it low and steady, ready in case the animal advanced. The bear's large, dark eyes lingered on the group, each second feeling like an eternity. Mark could feel the tension around him, but he focused on the bear, watching its every move. After what felt like hours, the bear seemed to lose some interest, shifting its gaze toward the riverbank and the scent of food lingering in the air. Mark saw this as a chance. He quietly told everyone to inch back, urging them to make their movements slow and controlled. They carefully shuffled backward, keeping their focus on the bear, but following Mark's lead with quiet determination. The bear watched them briefly, but seemed more preoccupied with the smells around the river. Once they had created some distance, Mark signaled the group to move back behind a large cluster of trees. The trees offered a natural barrier, providing protection and a chance to regroup. Mark took a moment to assess everyone, ensuring they were safe and unharmed. He could see the fear in their eyes, but he also noticed a sense of relief and gratitude. They had trusted him, and he had guided them through an incredibly tense encounter. As the bear finally wandered down the river, Mark gathered everyone together and spoke softly, reinforcing the importance of staying calm in dangerous situations. The group listened intently, still processing the close encounter with the bear. Some participants expressed lingering fears, while others seemed almost exhilarated by the experience. Mark encouraged them to share their thoughts, creating a safe space to discuss what had happened. In the following days, the group found themselves bonded by the experience. The encounter with the bear became a powerful story they would carry with them, a shared memory that symbolized courage and trust. They had learned the importance of respecting wildlife and the strength of unity and calm under pressure. When they returned to the camp, the program leaders reinforced stricter protocols for food storage and wildlife encounters, inspired by Mark's quick thinking. The incident underscored the need for heightened natural awareness, particularly in areas known for wild animal activity. For Mark and the group, the encounter served as a lasting reminder of the raw beauty and unpredictability of the wilderness, shaping their respect for nature and each other in profound ways. On October 15, 2024, Lisa Grant, a dedicated jogger from Colorado Springs, set out on her usual early morning run. The familiar chill of the autumn air and the vivid colors of the changing leaves created a serene start to her day. Jogging was her daily ritual to connect with nature while maintaining her active lifestyle. Lisa often chose to run along the neighborhood paths that bordered the nearby wildlife reserve, enjoying the tranquil beauty and calm of the early hours. Known for her adventurous spirit, she occasionally ventured off the main trails to explore quieter paths, eager to immerse herself further in nature's quiet. This morning, Lisa felt drawn to a less-traveled path that wound closer to the edge of the forest reserve. The trees loomed taller, their branches bending with clusters of fiery red and orange leaves that dotted the path ahead. She kept a steady pace, breathing in the cool, crisp air as she relished the morning sounds. Small animals rustled in the brush, and birds called softly as they flitted between branches above. Lost in the peacefulness, she sincerely appreciated the beauty around her. As she rounded a slight bend, her focus shifted to a trash bin on the outskirts of a park area adjacent to the trail. At first, she thought little of it, assuming it was merely a familiar sight for early joggers. But she noticed something unusual within moments, a dark shape hunched over the bin, barely visible through the morning mist. She slowed her pace, curiosity flickering briefly before recognition set in. Just a few yards away was an American black bear rummaging through the trash, its powerful paws reaching deep into the bin. Lisa's heart pounded as she processed the scene. She knew bears sometimes wandered into suburban areas for food, especially during the fall when they prepared for hibernation. Yet she had never imagined encountering one so closely, especially on her routine morning run. Frozen with awe and fear, Lisa watched the bear, hoping it wouldn't notice her. She had read about bear safety and knew sudden movements could provoke an unpredictable reaction. Unfortunately, the bear turned and locked eyes with her, shifting from relaxed to alert. The animal's dark eyes, sharp and observant, signaled that it had noticed her presence. Lisa's instincts screamed at her to turn and run, but her safety training reminded her that running could trigger the bear's chase instincts. Instead, she took a slow, steady step backward, keeping her gaze on the bear without direct eye contact. As Lisa continued to back away cautiously, she felt the weight of every second, each movement deliberate to avoid alarming the animal further. The bear, clearly startled by her unexpected presence, shifted its stance, briefly rising onto its hind legs before lowering itself, indicating curiosity and alarm. Lisa continued her slow, careful steps backward, each movement feeling like an eternity as she fought the natural urge to turn and flee. Her breathing was shallow, and her eyes were fixed on the bear without direct eye contact. She knew that keeping calm was her best chance at avoiding an attack. The bear, however, seemed torn between curiosity and agitation. It sniffed the air, catching her scent, then lowered itself back onto all fours and took a few cautious steps forward, closing the gap between them. A wave of fear washed over Lisa as she recognized the bear's increasing boldness. She knew she needed to appear non-threatening while attempting to discourage the animal. Slowly, she raised her arms to make herself look larger, recalling her training, hoping to convey to the bear that she was not prey. The bear paused, watching her intently, and for a brief moment her tactic might work. But then, likely feeling protective of its newfound food source by the trash bin, the bear made a low grumbling sound, signaling its irritation. Lisa's mind raced. She reached for the small canister of bear spray she always carried clipped to her waistband, her hand trembling as she prepared to use it if necessary. She kept her posture steady, her gaze calm, attempting to maintain her slow retreat. The bear huffed again, but this time it lowered its head and began sniffing the ground, seemingly distracted. Lisa took this as her opportunity to create more distance, continuing her backward steps until she was further down the path. Eventually, the bear appeared to lose interest in her, perhaps satisfied with its rummaging in the trash. It turned back toward the bin, lumbering closer to the scent of food scraps. Lisa's heart raced with relief as she realized the immediate danger was passing, but she remained vigilant, watching the bear from a safe distance. Only when the bear was entirely absorbed in its meal did she feel secure enough to turn around and walk briskly back toward the main trail, her senses still heightened with adrenaline. As she returned, Lisa felt the total weight of what had just happened. The calm morning quickly became a reminder of the risks of venturing close to wildlife habitats. She was grateful for her preparedness and awareness of bear safety, yet the encounter had shaken her. By the time she reached her car, parked near the trailhead, she was still catching her breath, her hands slightly unsteady from the rush of fear and relief. Reflecting on the experience later, Lisa realized how fortunate she was to have known how to respond. Her story quickly spread among local hikers and joggers, prompting discussions about the importance of bear safety in areas near wildlife reserves. Park authorities even issued reminders about securing trash bins to prevent bears from associating humans with food sources, a critical step in reducing such encounters. Lisa's encounter became a valuable reminder for the community, reinforcing respect for the unpredictable boundaries between human and wildlife territories. On October 25, 2024, Emma Collins found herself in the heart of Sumatra's rainforests, surrounded by towering trees and vibrant green foliage. As an eco-tourist from Australia, Emma had always been drawn to wild places and rare wildlife encounters. Her passion for conservation and photography led her to travel to various corners of the world, capturing moments that showcased the beauty and importance of preserving nature. This trip to Sumatra was no exception. She had eagerly joined a guided tour to observe the elusive sun bears in their natural habitat, hoping to glimpse the bears that inhabited this dense, humid jungle. Emma was aware of the guidelines set by the eco-tourism group she had joined, stressing the importance of remaining on designated trails and respecting wildlife boundaries. However, as evening descended and the air grew cooler, she was captivated by a unique opportunity. She spotted a sun bear in the distance, high in a fruiting tree, calmly feeding on ripe berries. Her heart raced excitedly, knowing how rare it was to see these bears up close. Despite her guide's earlier instructions, Emma strayed slightly from the path, believing she could capture the perfect photograph from a closer angle. Carefully maneuvering through the thick undergrowth, Emma positioned herself a short distance from the fruiting tree. She steadied her camera, adjusting the lens for a clear shot. Everything around her seemed still, with only the faint rustling of leaves and the distant calls of birds filling the evening air. She felt immersed in the scene momentarily, eager to capture the image that would forever remind her of this beautiful experience. However, Emma was unaware that her approach had taken her into the core of the sun bear's feeding territory. As she focused on the viewfinder, framing the bear in her lens, she failed to notice the subtle warning signs around her. Sensing an unfamiliar presence near her and her cubs, the mother bear grew increasingly uneasy. As Emma inched closer, hoping for a better angle, the mother bear's protectiveness turned into defensiveness. The bear's body stiffened, and she let out a low, guttural sound, signaling her discomfort. Emma realized too late that she was in a dangerous position. Now fully aware of the intrusion, the bear descended from the tree. Emma's heart raced as she glanced up from her camera, catching sight of the bear's intense gaze. She had unknowingly positioned herself in a way that blocked the bear's retreat path, creating a situation that threatened the mother bear. Instinctively, Emma stepped back, but her movement only seemed to further agitate the bear. In a swift reaction, the bear dropped from the tree, landing firmly on the ground. Emma's initial fascination quickly replaced fear as she recognized the immediate threat. She knew she had entered an area meant for the bear and her cubs alone, and now she was facing the consequences of venturing too close. The sun bear began to move toward her, its eyes focused and its posture defensive. Emma's instincts took over, and she quickly turned to navigate back through the dense jungle. Each step was heavy and urgent, her pulse racing as she struggled to maintain balance on the uneven forest floor. The bear followed closely, determined to protect her space. Emma's mind raced, recalling survival techniques, and she prepared herself for a tense and desperate escape. Emma felt every heartbeat as she tried to navigate her way through the dense rainforest. Her mind raced as she attempted to distance herself from the sun bear that had felt threatened by her approach. The forest floor was uneven, with roots and thick vines that made each step a struggle. Emma's energy began to fade as she pushed forward, her pulse pounding in her ears. She knew she couldn't run faster than the bear, but she hoped that moving steadily and staying aware might keep her safe. The bear was not far behind, following her movements with steady determination. Emma could hear the heavy steps of the animal as it trampled through the undergrowth, its intent clear. She kept moving, careful not to trip, focusing on the path ahead. Each time she glanced back, the sight of the bear's large frame moving through the shadows sent a new wave of fear through her. Her only option was to maintain her composure and pushing, hoping the bear would lose interest. She remembered the guidance she had learned about wildlife encounters, to make herself as unthreatening as possible. Her goal was to appear calm and avoid panicking or sudden movements. She maneuvered through the dense foliage and tried to remain quiet, hoping the bear might eventually decide to retreat. She knew that this situation resulted from her choice to leave the trail, a risk she had taken in her passion for photography. Now, her priority was survival. Emma soon noticed a large fallen tree nearby. She moved toward it, hoping it might offer some cover. The tree's massive trunk lay horizontally, partially lifted from the ground, forming a natural barrier. She crouched low, positioning herself behind it and holding her breath. The bear slowed, its pace becoming more cautious as it searched the area. Emma pressed herself against the trunk, keeping her movements minimal. She hoped the bear would lose sight of her and move on, giving her a chance to escape. After several tense moments, the bear seemed to hesitate. Emma watched from her hiding spot as the bear sniffed the air, its focus shifting away. Slowly, it began to wander in the opposite direction, its interest in her fading as it moved back toward the forest. Emma's body relaxed slightly but remained still, waiting for the bear to entirely disappear from view. Relief washed over her as she realized the immediate threat was gone. Once she felt it was safe, Emma carefully rose from her hiding spot. Her body ached from the strain of crouching and the tension of the encounter. She returned to the main path, her steps more cautious and her awareness heightened. This experience had shaken her deeply, reminding her of the respect nature demands. As she reached the trail, she reflected on the risk she had taken, understanding now the fine line between admiration and intrusion. When she returned to camp, her story became a reminder for others in her group. The staff enforced stricter guidelines, emphasizing the importance of respecting wildlife boundaries. Emma's experience served as a lesson, shaping her approach to her passion and leaving her with a renewed appreciation for the unpredictable wilderness. October 19th, 2024, dawned misty and cool in Kodiak, Alaska. The kind of morning that Jake Thompson cherished. A lifelong resident of the rugged Alaskan landscape, Jake was known by friends and family as an avid fisherman. Most mornings, he could be found on the old dock that extended over the chilly waters, casting his line with the confidence of someone who had fished these waters his entire life. Jake's love for fishing went beyond a hobby. It was a passion, a quiet ritual that brought him a sense of peace and connection to the natural world around him. The dock sat in a remote area, surrounded by thick forest and bordered by the vastness of Kodiak's wilderness. This region was renowned for its salmon runs, drawing fishermen like Jake and the mighty Kodiak bears that roamed the area. While Jake respected the bears, he knew the risks of fishing alone in their territory. Despite these risks, he found a strange solace in the solitude of the early hours when the world was still wrapped in silence and mist clung to the trees and water like a blanket. That morning, Jake had already reeled in a few good-sized salmon. Glistening and writhing fish were carefully stored in a small, more excellent nearby, the fresh catch filling the air. As he cast his line out once more, he focused on the subtle movement of the water, a sign that a fish might be nearing his bait. This rhythm was familiar to him, the quiet moments before the sudden excitement of a catch. But just as he felt a tug on his line, another sound reached his ears, a faint rustling from the edge of the trees. Jake's body tensed as he glanced toward the tree line. A massive Kodiak bear emerged from the shadows, its movements steady and purposeful. Drawn by the scent of fish, the bear advanced, sniffing the air and locking its eyes on the dock where Jake stood. He knew instantly that this wasn't just a casual encounter. The bear was hungry, its senses heightened by the aroma of fresh salmon lingering in the damp morning air. Remaining calm was Jake's first priority. Panic could provoke the bear, making an already dangerous situation worse. As the bear approached, he slowly backed up, avoiding sudden movements. His hand instinctively reached toward his bag, where he kept a set of non-lethal deterrents for such moments. Every experienced fisherman in Kodiak knew that such tools were essential, and Jake had taken precautions, understanding that coexistence with these formidable creatures required respect and readiness. Now, only a few yards away, the bear seemed larger than life against the backdrop of the misty morning. Its eyes remained fixed on Jake and the fish cooler by his side. Jake took a deep breath, holding his ground as he prepared to use his deterrents. His goal was simple: to create enough distance between himself and the bear without provoking it further. He knew that sudden movements or loud noises could be seen as a challenge, but he also understood that remaining passive was not an option. As he readied himself, he could feel the adrenaline building, every sense sharpened by the bear's presence. The bear took slow, deliberate steps toward Jake, its robust frame moving closer as it sniffed the air, catching the scent of the salmon nearby. Jake knew he had to act without triggering the bear's aggression. Reaching into his bag with steady hands, he pulled out a can of bear spray, his last line of defense if the bear advanced further. His mind raced through every safety guideline he had learned, reminding himself that his calmness was his best tool in such a moment. Jake stood his ground, extending his arm slightly to ensure he could use the spray effectively if the bear came closer. The enormous animal paused a few feet away, staring intently at the fish-filled cooler. Jake knew the bear weighed its options, deciding whether to charge or turn back. To break the tension, he slowly waved his arm and made himself appear more prominent, a move he hoped would make the bear hesitate. The bear took another step, and Jake held his breath, his heart pounding with every second that passed. After a tense silence, the bear finally turned its head, glaring at the fish. Deciding that Jake's presence was not worth the trouble, it moved away, lumbering slowly back toward the trees from where it had come. Jake watched as the animal disappeared into the shadows, relief washing over him as he realized the immediate danger had passed. His muscles relaxed, but the experience had shaken him, reminding him how fragile the balance between humans and wildlife could be. Once the bear was out of sight, Jake carefully placed the bear spray back in his bag, grateful he hadn't needed to use it, but aware that he had come dangerously close. He took a deep breath, allowing the tension to leave his body as he collected his scattered belongings. The encounter had impacted him, instilling a more profound respect for the powerful creatures who shared the land. The fish he had caught no longer seemed as important as the lesson he had just experienced firsthand. As he packed up his gear, Jake glanced around the quiet, mist-covered woods, feeling renewed awe for the wilderness. The encounter had reminded him of the wild beauty and unpredictability of Alaska, where he lived and worked. He knew he would return to the dock to fish again, but this time with even greater awareness of the environment and a more substantial commitment to safety. The incident would not deter him from doing what he loved, but left him with a lasting sense of humility and respect. When he returned to town, Jake shared the story with friends and fellow fishermen who listened with wide eyes and admiration. The community took his experience seriously, using it to reinforce bear safety measures and remind others of the importance of staying alert. His encounter became a story that people told with caution, a reminder of how quickly things could change in the wilderness. For Jake, it was a lesson etched deeply into his memory, a testament to the respect and caution required to live alongside nature.